Imagine you're walking down a familiar grocery store aisle. You know the one. You're surrounded by bright boxes, catchy slogans, and shelves packed to the brim with snacks, cereals, and frozen dinners. It feels like a pretty normal place, right? Just somewhere to pick out your weekly meals. But what if I told you that this very aisle is actually a high-stakes financial battleground? In today's Explainer, we are looking past all that flashy packaging to see how shifting health trends, rising concerns over obesity, and ingredient safety are completely transforming the processed food industry. We're going to explore how our everyday consumer choices are quite literally reshaping billion-dollar companies. So, let's dig in, shall we?
This brings us to a really fascinating core paradox. We all know there's been a massive cultural push towards eating healthier. But how do you actually measure the financial impact of a healthier diet? Well, it turns out that abstract ideas like wellness, nutrition, and ingredient safety actually have direct, measurable impacts on a processed food company's bottom line, their brand value, and even their cost of capital. So eating your vegetables isn't just good advice anymore, it is a massive financial pivot for the entire industry.
To make sense of all this, we're going to follow a pretty clear roadmap. First, we'll cover the health and nutrition shift. Second, food safety and recalls. Third, marketing to children. And finally, we'll weigh the risks against the opportunities. And we'll be viewing all of this through the lens of the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board framework, commonly known as SASB. And the reason we rely on that specific framework is because of its strict, standardized accounting metrics. You see, these aren't just theories or nice-to-have corporate goals. Major global investors use this exact, rigorous data to evaluate the processed food sector. It completely proves that sustainability, health, and safety are strictly tracked data points that can absolutely make or break a company's financial standing.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the health and nutrition shift.
Over the last decade or so, growing concerns over rising obesity rates and ingredient safety have essentially forced the industry to adapt. But what exactly does healthy mean to a corporate accountant? Well, according to SASB, it's highly specific. For a product to actually count under these metrics when it claims health benefits, it generally has to fall into one of a few buckets. It must have no additives, so no artificial sweeteners or colors. Or it must be low in sodium, fat, or cholesterol. It might boast beneficial nutrients like added vitamins, fiber, or protein, or, and this is a big one, it must feature reduced added sugar. The absolutely crucial point here is that a company can't just slap a green leaf on a box of sugar and call it a day. The product has to meet strict nutritional criteria.
And why do these companies care so much about hitting these specific criteria? As always, you have to follow the money. This specific metric, revenue from products labeled or marketed to promote health and nutrition attributes, is a primary indicator for investors. Tracking this revenue shows that nutrition is not merely a public relations exercise. It is a critical financial metric that reveals whether a company is successfully capturing the growing market of health-conscious consumers, or if they're falling behind.
What's actually kind of fascinating here is the fine print. The definition of marketed to promote health is very strictly bound. Notice what it completely excludes: organic, non-GMO, and gluten-free products. Why? Well, because the accounting framework considers those to be entirely separate categories with their own distinct metrics. This ensures that when investors are looking at a company's health and nutrition revenue, they are looking specifically at the nutritional profile of the food. We're talking less sugar, less salt, fewer artificial additives, and not just its agricultural origins.
Moving on to Section 2, food safety and recalls.
So while improving nutrition is all about capturing the future market, avoiding catastrophic losses today is equally vital. Because processed food supply chains are so massive and complex, the escalation path when safety protocols fail is incredibly severe, and it's meticulously tracked. It usually starts with a notice of violation from a regulatory agency regarding hygienic practices or contamination. If that's not corrected, boom, it escalates to an involuntary recall, where products must be immediately pulled from the market. The final and obviously most damaging step, civil or even criminal actions against the company. And the financial framework demands total transparency when things go wrong. Companies are required to report the exact number of recalls issued, plus the total weight of the food product recalled. The so what here is absolutely monumental. To put it into perspective, a single major recall doesn't just mean a few empty grocery store shelves for a week. It actively destroys consumer trust, heavily impairs brand value, and introduces massive litigation costs that can plague a company for years. To prevent these total disasters, the industry relies heavily on proactive measurement.
Companies track Global Food Safety Initiative, or GFSI, audits within their supplier facilities. They are actively looking for major nonconformances, which are severe risks requiring immediate escalation, and minor nonconformances, which are more isolated incidents. But maybe more importantly, they track the corrective action rates. Investors really want to know, when you find a problem in your supply chain, how fast do you actually fix it before a contaminated product reaches a family's dinner table?
Let's shift gears to Section 3, Marketing to Our Children.
This focus on protection brings us to exactly how food is sold to vulnerable demographics. First things first, we need to define who we are talking about, and that is, precisely, age 12 and under. If a local jurisdiction doesn't have a specific legal definition, this is the strict default standard used by the SASB framework for tracking advertising.
And here is the exact metric that holds companies accountable: the percentage of advertising impressions made on children that promote products meeting dietary guidelines. Basically, companies have to quantify exactly how many TV, internet, and even mobile app ads seen by kids are actually promoting healthy diets versus unhealthy ones. If a company is just overwhelming children with ads for highly processed, sugary snacks, the data will clearly show it, exposing them to significant reputational and regulatory nightmares.
Because when marketing crosses the line, the penalties are steep. Non-compliance risks include things like misbranded labels, deceptive advertising, and false health claims. If a company claims a sugary cereal is somehow a health food, they aren't just misleading the public, they are practically inviting regulatory cease and desist orders, heavy civil penalties, and really expensive corrective advertising campaigns. Companies literally must disclose the total amount of monetary losses resulting from these legal proceedings.
Finally, Section 4, Risks versus Opportunities. All right, let's bring all these threads together. The shift toward healthier eating and transparent marketing is really a dual-sided coin. On the one side, you have existential risks. Real concerns over obesity and health are leading to new regulations and even direct taxes on highly processed foods in various regions. Companies failing to adapt are facing shrinking demand and costly litigation. But on the flip side, there are massive opportunities. Companies that successfully reformulate their products to actually be healthier can capture a premium market of health-conscious consumers, expand into emerging segments, and entirely bypass those heavy regulatory penalties.
Managing these risks and capturing those opportunities requires meticulous data tracking. Across the SASB framework, every single label, every GMO claim, and every marketing impression is a quantifiable data point. Honestly, surviving in this industry today means managing this data perfectly.
And here's the kicker. They can't just react to problems as they arise. The framework requires companies to provide a detailed discussion of their process for identifying and managing ingredients related to health concerns. They literally must disclose their long-term strategies. Are they phasing out controversial artificial dyes? Are they substituting unsustainable ingredients? Investors are demanding to see a forward-looking strategy that proves a company is actually adapting to what consumers want and need for their health.
So the next time you're walking down that grocery store aisle and you pick up a box with a bright, shiny, healthy label on it, I want you to ask yourself, is this just clever marketing or is it a rigorously measured metric? Because behind that simple cardboard box is a wildly complex web of financial data, safety audits, and shifting global health trends. The food we buy shapes the entire market, and understanding how these giant companies are held accountable makes us all much more powerful consumers. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep asking the right questions.